I remember I'm 18 years old. I'm working at WPGC in Washington, D.C., and I can see the light on top of the Washington Monument. So I'm at Ground Zero. Ronald Reagan is in office, and there's something, I don't remember what it was, but a confrontation with the Soviet Union, and it was really serious. And I remember keeping the door to the teletype in my studio open. Teletype is how we used to get the news. And it had bells on it, and a 10-bell event would be nuclear war. And I kept that propped open so I could hear those bells and count the bells. And, you know, we got, I think, as high as like 6 bells. And I would count them because I knew, and I thought, I'm at Ground Zero. I mean, this could be over in 12 minutes. I haven't felt that way really until this administration. You know, even after September 11th, I remember feeling on September 11th, boy, I don't know what they're going to do. But it wasn't a fear of nuclear war or all-out war over the whole world. We're approaching that kind of place. We now have, do we have the live footage? They're tracking Nancy Pelosi's plane. We can show it to you. She's at about 10,000 feet, headed towards Taiwan. She has avoided the restricted airspace over the South China Sea. However, China has just closed the airspace above the Taiwan Strait. And they're at least flexing their muscles. If you look at what China is sending out online, you are seeing military being moved. You have the aircraft carriers from China moving out of their home ports and headed towards Taiwan. I don't know what's going to happen. We have a guy who actually is, I mean, somewhat of kind of an expert on this area working for us. He's our chief researcher and head writer for the Glenn Beck television program, Jason Buttrill. Hello, Jason. How are you?
Hey, Glenn. Doing good.
So, Jason, help me out on how serious is this with China, do you think?
I think it's very serious, especially considering, you know, the symbolic meaning of Taiwan. Taiwan's very, very symbolic to the Chinese Communist Party. This has been an issue since, you know, the communists took over, really. So this is probably one of the most crazy, ambiguous treaties we've ever had. The Taiwan Relations Act is the most ambiguous thing ever, which makes Kirby's, you know, remarks yesterday kind of odd to come out and say, you know, we don't support independence so publicly. I mean, I've read the Taiwan Relations Act cover to cover. The ambiguity, just saying it's ambiguous is even an understatement. It's the equivalent of one of the most confusing Christopher Nolan movies ever. Take Inception, take Interstellar, take Tenet, and then have 30 different people try to describe what it actually means. Like, oh, I actually think it means. That's basically what we're talking about here.
So this is Taiwan and China are at war with each other. It's a civil war, and it happened in the 1950s. So this has been going back and forth from the 1950s, but it's coming to a head, and that's because as China rises in power, they think the odds are that they can take the United States of America. I don't think that's possible yet, but I think we're maybe 2 to 5 years away from them actually being able to take Taiwan and call our bluff or just fight the war.
Yeah.
You think that's accurate?
No, absolutely accurate. China sees Taiwan like they see Hong Kong. When they made the deal with Hong Kong, it was people always say, oh, well, you know, China has no right to do this. It's supposed to be two systems, you know, under one country. Yeah, but it was in that agreement that China would one day take full control and it would be one system. People usually leave that part out. They just decided to accelerate their plans. They see Taiwan as one China, and they believe it's rightfully theirs. And their plan is always to take it. They just don't have the military capability. Now, moving towards what we're seeing now, the thing that would have always, tip us off, and in the Taiwan Relations Act, we said that if you try to coerce, militarily onto Taiwan to change Taiwan and take it, we will respond. And President Reagan, in I believe 1980 or 1982, reassured right after the 1979 Taiwan Act, reassured that, hey, we are still giving you weapons. We are still coming to your defense. So this is a very, very old agreement we've had, and yes, we will go and respond. But the thing that has always kept, the things, kind of open and, that we can see what's going on in the future is it would take a tremendous Chinese military buildup to be put in place before we would, the actual action. So we would see it, we'd see the buildup, we'd go and, respond to it. What Pelosi's done, and let's put this into context, the Speaker of the House has just undermined her president's in the same party, his foreign policy. She has taken it on herself to manipulate U.S. foreign policy. It's absolutely unprecedented. She has no right to do this. It's not under the duties of the Speaker of the House. But her actions are allowing this military buildup to happen. It's accelerating an already accelerated plan that we've seen, with China and Hong Kong.
I tell you, it is truly frightening. And by the way, the reason why Taiwan is important to the United States is if Taiwan falls, we then are pretty much out of Asia. The next country to fall would be New Zealand and Australia, and China would just overrun all of that hemisphere. And between Russia and China, that would be a very difficult match for us to even stand shoulder to shoulder with. Okay, so let me give you a couple of scenarios, and I want to hear what you think the best scenario is. These are 5 different scenarios that have been put together by a Taiwanese-based researcher. So the first one, minimalist approach. The People's Army occupies Jimen or Matsu Islands, as well as Taiwan's islands in the South China Sea, maybe even the Peng Islands. They declare part or all of the Taiwan Strait a no-go zone. They just did that. And they say give it a no-go zone to all military shipping. This would be fairly easy, et cetera, and it would not overcommit them. It would just be a step up. Scenario number 2, hybrid warfare. Some sort of a partial naval and aerial blockade of Taiwan intended to interfere with the economy, to combine with stepped-up harassment such as direct flyovers, which they did last night while we were all sleeping, incursions into maritime space by China's military. They might also have cyber attacks, which they just did about 2 hours before Pelosi's plane was taking off. Scenario number 3, a serious attack but no invasion. This would involve air and sea warfare, no boots on the ground, full aerial and naval blockade, protracted set of naval and aerial battles designed to degrade Taiwan's military, combined with ballistic missile attacks on military targets. Scenario number 4, a real, actual invasion. Scenario number 5, short of a nuclear attack, would be the worst case. Full air and sea blockade, massive ballistic missile attacks on military targets, cyber attack, aggressive naval and aerial attacks, and boots on the ground. I don't think that one is even possible right now, but maybe it is. Which one, or do you have another scenario that you think is more likely to come from this?
Just so to point out, I think every single one of those scenarios would break the Taiwan Relations Act, which would require an American response. So if they're thinking about doing any of those, they're ready for war. Just really quick, if I can remember all of them. The first one, occupying some of those islands in the air defense zone. We already saw the air defense zone occupying any of those islands, including the Penghu Islands.
Yes.
Those are part of the Pescador Islands, which is specifically named in the Taiwan Relations Act as part of Taiwan. So that's a huge that's a huge, we're getting involved, basically, if they do that. And that
is a progressive way for China to do it, where they're not taking all of it. They're just moving in. And then, like Republicans always do, you just back up and like, oh, well, that's okay. Okay, well, we'll get it on the next vote. That's a progressive tactic. And America would probably not go to war over something like that, I would hope.
Yeah.
We should note real quick, Nancy Pelosi has just landed in Taiwan. So that is just
congratulations.
Just watched it live here. Whatever game is being played is going to be played.
The other scenarios, pretty much, many of them involved economic, hybrid warfare or blockades. Economic hybrid warfare was not mentioned back then in the Taiwan Relations Act. I would put that in the same category as blockade. That's also mentioned. So if any of those things happen, we are then, according to the text, obligated to respond. So we're responding anyway.
So if they pretty much do anything, even the lightest, the minimal approach, they would be in violation of this act, our treaty, if you will. And it puts us, into action and calls our bluff.
Right.
I am terrified of what the Biden administration would do, because the Biden administration is absolutely toothless. We have no allies. What we've done in Russia has only benefited Russia and hurt everyone else. I think these guys could overreact and do something very provocative that in the end will just destroy us. What should be our response, Jason?
Oh, gosh. Like I said, this is such a complicated issue because it's so, I hate to use the word again, ambiguous. I think that, let me just go to this point. I think that, I don't think China will do any of those things. I think that China will use this as an excuse to do a massive military buildup. That's what I think. And we already saw
massive military exercise.
Massive military exercise. Oh, we're just going to position all these things here. We're going to put all these boats here. We're going to keep these aircraft carriers here. That way, it puts us off balance on we don't know how far they've escalated their timeline. And that's why I think this is such a horrible, not only dangerous, but horrible move by Nancy Pelosi in doing this, is you're bringing right to the surface what we think we have 10 years to plan for and to prepare for. That's what I think will happen. I think that just we'll see a lot more military buildup in that area. It'll be harder for us to know when they are actually going to attack. Now, if they do any of those other things, I think that we're obligated to respond in some way. I'll leave it up to them to decide what is how to balance it all out. They're obviously not the ones that I want, in charge right now to do that. But what we're signaling to everybody else in the region that, hey, the time of you being able to count on us, that's over now. So, yeah.
I will tell you, Jason, thank you so much for your analysis. And of course, we'll be watching it. And if you watch and see some things, let me know and we'll tweet it out today and Facebook post, because this is something that is ongoing. Thank you, Jason, for your help. I will tell you that now is a time to pray for your country. And let me just remind you, the Republicans always get the warmonger label. Let's just say that the Republicans have changed on war. We've learned our lessons, I think. And Donald Trump, world was at peace. Look at how fast that has deteriorated. We could be in a proxy war with both Russia and China by tomorrow. It's insanity.